How do we celebrate the gift of being alive together on this blue-green planet? This is the question Thomas takes up in this conversation, where he calls celebration the ultimate consecration of the human process. Yet Thomas laments that this innate capacity for celebration has been warped by the commercial establishment. This could be seen, for instance, at the recent Super Bowl, where 882 carbon-polluting private jets descended on Las Vegas for a football game. Thomas calls us to channel these latent energies of celebration into the transformation moments of the universe, including the great flaring forth, the birth of stars, and the biannual solstices marking the grand journey of the sun. In our own time, Thomas says, we must learn to celebrate the dawn of an ecozoic era of human earth flourishing. For Thomas, the ecozoic can be seen as a celebration of existence and the community relationships of human and more than human beings that comprise a single sacred society. Only through this capacity for celebration can we animate a future in which the children of all species can flourish.
This goes back to your point of the millennial drive. In a certain sense, this is a profound distortion of an originally valid ideal, this notion of the millennium at a spiritual level.
Yeah.
But then when it became a historical drive that humans were going to accomplish, we have this distortion. One of the other ideals that you've talked about is celebration, and the way in which the path to fulfillment for a human includes celebration. And this would also be then an ideal that's been distorted by the commercial enterprise.
Yeah, that's one of the things, one of the most necessary things, perhaps the central thing is, how do we celebrate? What are we excited by and think is a glorious moment of our existence when we dance and sing or have a kind of an ecstatic mode of experience that is associated with dance that's not just simply dance, but the ecstatic type dance, or excitement that goes with such transforming music. We all have had that experience of glorious music that just elevates us into such a superb experience of a type of fulfillment. We all have this type of thing. Now, I am suggesting that the thing that we need now is to learn how to celebrate the ecozoic era some way. But I think that our liturgies must include celebration of the transformation moments that I've mentioned earlier, that the great transformation moments need to be celebrated, but particularly the movement into the ecozoic era. But in general, the best way to appreciate our times is to appreciate these great creative experiences of an earlier period, and then to be able to see that our task is the task to do something with conscious intention that in other times took place by a kind of evolutionary process without human conscious intention. In this sense, human conscious intention toward an ecozoic era is part of and in continuity with the whole evolutionary dynamic. And so this represents a transformation of a change of phase, as you've expressed, a change of phase of the evolutionary process.
Well, the celebration then would be simultaneously a moment of fulfillment and part of what evokes the ecozoic era in your thinking. But celebration as it's happening, taking place in our society today, would be a distortion of that. And is it then is the celebration or the entertainment world, is that simply a trivialization of this dynamic, or is it rather deeper, and is it actually drawing us into the destruction itself?
Well, it's drawing us into a greater participation in the contemporary process. But a person would have to say, though, that it keeps us psychically alive to some extent. Like I talk about the exaggerated attention to sports, where we beat the drums and everybody gets hyped up and shouting and all that at, say, the Super Bowl, which you probably know is the biggest single celebration of the year in America. It's a kind of a ritual, and it's integral with and principally supported by the corporation establishment, for the corporations, to benefit by. They're the ones that finance it. They're the ones that preside over it to a certain extent. So a person would say that it keeps people alive, so to speak, and until we can, they're a distraction in a way. But it's simply that it's better that there be celebration probably than there not be celebration, but there is the fact of how do you transfer this to a more creative context.
Yeah, I appreciate the positive part of that, but still, isn't it part of the distortion of the millennial drive, in that if the corporations are using a celebration as a way of captivating a contemporary consciousness, isn't that all part of a movement to distort the whole human enterprise into advancing this destruction? Isn't that really what's taking place?
Well, that's really what's taking place. How to stop that or change it. A person doesn't want to stop it exactly, but to transform it into a creative type experience. So right now, it's just confirming people and into what they're doing. But if that's not done, it would turn into a possibly more destructive way. In other words, it could go, human energies could go into a more destructive context.
Before, Thomas, you used the adjective demonic, and as you said, it's a heavy word, but nevertheless, when you step back, as you have done, and examine the whole human enterprise, it seems to be the case that right now we have a civilization where, especially young people, are given a profoundly distorted view of what it means to be human and what it means to be a hero. And then when we look at what captivates their attention, say the Super Bowl, and their whole lives are wrapped up with trying to get to the Super Bowl, say.
Yeah.
This isn't accidental. This has been worked out by the corporations as a way of fixating our attention. So it seems it brings to mind again this notion of a deeply negative pathological condition of our society.
Yeah.
And it's in a certain sense a distortion of some very profound energies here.
Well, that's precisely the thing. You have even the Olympics, which is this whole world sports event celebrated. And again, the corporations backing the whole process, so that it is an indication and a validation of the fact that whatever humans do, celebration is kind of the ultimate consecration. Celebration and consecration go together. It's of the human process. That's why they have a kind of, it's a sacred thing. This enters into the world of the sacred. So in that sense, it does show that if we're going to have an ecozoic era, it cannot be done without a ritual, celebratory dimension and identity and consecration. Now, just how to bring that about, but the event, it's an age itself, is a celebration. In other words, it's not that the Ecozoic era we celebrated. We have to identify it with celebration. That the Ecozoic era is celebration of existence and community relationships of the human and the other components of the planet Earth as a single sacred society. And that's why I say that we need to think about the children, and we need to be concerned with all the children, say, of the North American continent. We need to be concerned with the children of the whole planet. The children of the trees, the children of the birds, the children of the animals, of the fox, the bear, the children of the fish, the children of the whole living world. And the human children are a single community that needs to go into the future as a single sacred community. So when we can think of the future in terms of the children, but think of the children as including all the children, then we have things in their proper dimension. Now, till we do that, if we just think of the human children, we won't save the human children. We want an Ecozoic era for the humans. That distorts the whole thing. What we need to do is to appreciate that there's a single sacred society. There's a single childhood community. There's not a human childhood community and a childhood community of the other modes of life. It's a single childhood community that constitutes the new generation. And so the primary work of this generation, I would say, is to prepare the next generation to go into the future as a single community.